weeks ago today, almost to the minute, I was down at Bournemouth at the Labour Party conference, and I listened very closely to what Gordon Brown had to say, and I can quote you exactly what he said. He said, "I pledge to strengthen our liberties, to uphold the freedom of protest." And what has he spent the last 2 weeks trying to do? Trying to ban this demonstration using rules which were used to suppress the Chartists in the last century. So what do we think of Gordon Brown's pledge to extend our liberties? They've now had to cave in this morning and allow this protest to go ahead. So what a victory for our movement.
Being here today, that is part of the campaign for free speech. It's part of the campaign for justice. Had you not been here today, I very much doubt the police would have lifted their ban on the march. And if you don't demonstrate, you don't strike and you don't march, they're all at risk and they can all be lost.
Our public services will be even worse off than they are today, and that's pretty badly off. But what it's also going to do is talk about increasing spending on arms and on warfare. £5 billion for 50 years. £5 billion for 50 years. That's 200 new hospitals every year that won't be built. This government needs to be told, and thank God there are people like us telling them. Let's hope they listen. Thank you.
Hans Blix, the United Nations envoy, was looking for those so-called weapons of mass destruction. If he had been allowed to continue, over 160 British soldiers would still be alive today.
And when we went to war for oil, which is what it was about, we tore up the Charter of the United Nations. It was an illegal war, an immoral war, and it's an unwinnable war. And we have to see that it stops, and it stops now. I have 10 grandchildren. Oh my God, from all over the world. I've got 2 Indian grandchildren, another one's in love with a Punjabi lawyer, another one's in love with a black American doctor, my wife was an American, and so on and so on. I'm breeding a UN peacekeeping force in my own family. Comrades, I think of my grandchildren because they have a decision to make that no decision has ever previous generations had to make. With the technology at our disposal, we could destroy the human race. But if we use it, my God, to build hospitals and schools and houses, we could solve the problems of the human race. The police are going to allow us to march. And that is a victory that you have achieved, and it's an enormously important victory. And as you go down past the cenotaph, just think of all the guys who gave their lives so we have the right to go to Parliament. And we are the people who put them there. They are not the people who tell us what we can say and what we can do.
When Gordon Brown went to Baghdad and Basra last Tuesday, he did not go walkabout in Basra or in Baghdad, because he knows that the people will be telling him no to the occupation, withdraw the troops from Iraq.
Our government talks a lot about our special relationship with America, but we should now be asking how special that really is. And I think we should be looking at another relationship we have that seems to be much more special, that with Europe. If we'd followed the European line rather than the American, it's likely that we wouldn't have been part of this stupid invasion, and possibly it wouldn't have happened at all.
There's a little bit disappointed that the police have said that there's not going to be a law enforced that says that we're to be stopped from going down Whitehall. I think in some ways we would benefit from a law that said anyone who is a threat to civilization shouldn't be allowed in Whitehall, because then Gordon Brown wouldn't be allowed to go home. Last thing he's done, apparently he said he's going to be a Catholic. Well, I think that's fairly suitable for him. He's got enough to be fucking guilty about. Thank you.
with apparent sincerity of how you have been listening, how you hear out the grassroots, and how you will do everything in your power to change things. Well, join us now. Instead of being on the side of military force, change for peace through dialogue and political solutions. Change the lives of our troops in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and change the lives of Iraqis and Afghans by helping them build futures, infrastructures, and educational systems.
They have underestimated our movement. Let us say to them today, you are never going to draw a line under this war in Iraq until you bring the troops home. And we don't want the troops brought home to be sent to Afghanistan or to be sent to the Iranian border, or so that we can back airstrikes against Iran. We want the troops home, and we want to break with George Bush's murderous imperialist policy. Those are the demands that we want.
Come to Parliament! Come to Parliament! That bloody fence that Ken Livingstone has put up must come down. Parliament's